And on and on and on and on. Folks, welcome inside
Sonny Rollins, the baddest improviser of our time, man.
I mean, folks, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show, and might as well hop right into it with a dear friend of the program and a guy that, if it's up to me, I'll make sure that he's never forgotten as the continual rhythms of our culture continue into the unknown. And brilliant drummer, a guy who makes it look easy, and the definition of genius is making something that's complex, making it look very easy, and he does it on a consistent basis. I've done 2 radio interviews with him. I've done a Facebook Live with him at his home in Santa Fe, and what a high honor. Tootie, Heath, welcome back to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Damn, Jake, it's hard to come in after that introduction, man. Between Sonny Rollins and all that nice stuff you just said about me, you make me think you got the wrong number.
No, it's possible. Again, though, one reason you pop back into my consciousness is just when I had this amazing talk with Louis Hayes. He's just such a character, and he, when I brought up your name, he's like, Tootie and I are born on the same day, and then you're telling me that
I just called him a couple of days ago because I told him, I said, look, man, we're in our 80s, and one of us can leave at any moment, so I better say happy birthday ahead of time.
I'm serious. Well, I knock on wood, man. I'm with you. Father Time gets all of us. It's just, the fact is, I didn't call the wrong number because my guest was birthed on the same day as Christian McBride, Miles Davis, Louis Hayes, and Tootie Heath. So you're in good company, my friend. And I wanted to start this interview with a game on this program called Name That Voice. I want you to take a listen to this, and then we'll come back and talk about it, okay?
All right.
Industrial high school and finished 11th grade, who became doctors and professors and all. We were determined to be something, man. With all the handicaps, African American people got a lot of strength, and they're proving. And what's happening now in the world is the white, rich guys who are in power are so frightened what's happening to people of color moving in this country.
It's going to make it
more. The Latinos
make it more beautiful.
Color.
Make it more beautiful.
Yes, and when they're moving in, they're frightened as hell. That's why they're doing all this stuff they're doing, this evilest things they can do. But they can keep on and keep on. It's going to end somewhere. They're not going to be in charge forever.
You want to take a guess at who that is?
That sounds like my big brother, Jimmy Heath.
That was I went to visit him in Atlanta, and we did a Facebook Live interview. You are 100%. I was at his. I find it ironic he's living in Plantation Village. He's like, I'm living on the plantation, but I'm not a slave.
Yeah.
But dude, he was
all the slaves. He outlived all the slaves. Man. That boy's 92, man. He's ridiculous, man. I've been knowing him for 84 years now.
I mean, can you talk a little bit about he called them handicaps. He actually, I don't know if you could even riff on this too. It was not exactly he talked earlier about Resident Chump evicting your parents or something about the housing in where you guys were living in Harlem, and Trump's father kicked all the people out of the apartment complex. I didn't have that story queued up, but is that something that you remember?
No, I don't know anything about that.
Okay, I'm going to have to get this to you because it was kind of...
Jimmy lived in New York before me, so, because he's older than me, so he got there a little ahead of me, so he knew a lot more about New York and Harlem than I did. I came later.
Can you talk to the audience? I mean, I was talking to John McLaughlin, and he was saying that his band Shakti shared a bill with Black Sabbath, and you really couldn't get two more diametrically opposed groups than Black Sabbath and Shakti. And I wanted to ask, I mean, because you're with Sonny. You play with Lester. I mean, it just goes on. Specs. I mean, what was the strangest musical lineup that you ever appeared on a live setting?
I think it was with Thelonious at the Blue Note in Philadelphia. It was my scariest gig I ever had in my life.
Can you walk us through that experience?
Well, at that time, Nika Koningsworth was the Baroness.
Yes.
She was in love with Thelonious musically, and as a person, he was one of the people that she really cared a lot about. So she used to bring him every night to Philadelphia from New York to this club called the Blue Note, and I played with him and a bass player who's gone now as well, named Jimmy Bond.
Oh my God, are you kidding? I love that dude, man.
Yeah,
he played with Crusaders.
And good friend of mine and the family, and he took really good care of me because Jimmy was a little older than me, so he would make sure that I was on some of the top gigs like Nina Simone. Jimmy arranged all of that I was with Nina and that I was with Thelonious. So we played with Thelonious every night, so we were there waiting. Opening night, we were waiting for Thelonious to come in, and this Bentley came up in front of the club, which was about maybe 20 minutes before time for us to start playing. And I looked out the door, and I saw Thelonious sitting in the car smoking a cigarette, and the Baroness, she was smoking one too in her cigarette holder, which she was known for smoking through a cigarette holder, and she always wore some of the most wonderful French perfumes that I have ever had the pleasure of smelling. So
I love it.
Yes, yeah, man. She wore wonderful perfume, and I think it was called Quelque Fleur. I bought it for my wife because
you were so intoxicated by it, yeah.
Yeah, I was knocked over by it, and she used to come to the club with Thelonious, and then about 10 minutes before time for us to start, he would get out the car and come in the club and just sit down and start playing. And he wouldn't take off his hat or coat. He would sit there with his coat and hat on, and he would play. And then he never even turned around and said hello to us, So he said he did announce me and Jimmy, and it's online right now, because a young piano player named Benny Green sent it to me. Understand how it became live because Jackie Fields, who owned the club, must have had a hidden tape recorder somewhere to record all of this, because I have as well as it's just audio. It's not a video.
Right.
So he had a tape recorder somewhere. So but, you know, in those days, '57, a tape recorder was like pretty big, like a microwave that size.
That's right. No, it was the only thing you could record on. Yeah.
Right. So he had it hidden somewhere, but I never saw it, and I never understood. I never believed that we had any kind of audio recording with Thelonious. But he did announce me and Jimmy, and it's on the.
I'm going to try to look that up right now. I'm going to read you this quote from the late great Ndugu Chancellor. He said, "I worked with Monk for 2 weeks straight in San Francisco, and he didn't say 5 words to me the first week. The second week, we had a real conversation off the bandstand. He was opening up to me, and we talked about family, talked about a bunch of things. The first week, all he'd do is nod his head. That was hello. And the next few days, hello, and that was it. You get used to nonverbal communication. You get used to musical communication, which is another one of those dying art forms. Rest in peace." Can you talk about, not even with Monk, but with any of these cats, the greatest thing about your generation, Tootie, is that you guys play the most spiritual, burning music. And like you said, Monk didn't come in, there was no spread. He came in with his jacket on. He just started
with
to...
an overcoat, not a jacket.
Overcoat. Was it winter, though? Was it winter or something? Was it cold out?
It must have been, because he had his hat and his coat on and got out of the car with that on.
Can you talk...
Walked in the club and sat on the piano, and that was it.
I know you play with some younger cats today, Ethan Iverson and cats like that. Do you think musical communication is a dying art form?
No, I don't. I think those young guys are doing it as well. Ethan is one of the most fabulous piano players I've ever played with. Let me say something about this guy, man.
Yeah.
I've seen this guy play 2 melodies, one in his left hand and one in his right hand at the same time on the keyboard. I know for piano players that's not something that's really ridiculous, but for me it was. I had never seen anybody do that. And I had seen a lot of piano players, but Ethan has some special talents, man. And other young man that I've been playing with recently is Emmett Cohen. And Emmett is a young pianist who knows all of the history of our music. I mean, he knows everything about everybody who's ever played it and who's playing it now. He's the update on the history lesson. So anyhow.
Well, I'm not talking about like, calisthenics. I understand they probably have great time feel and it's fun to play with them. But, I mean, you're looking at, Ronnie Matthews, Kenny Barron, Thelonious Monk, Herbie Hancock. I mean, the propensity
Barry Harris.
Thank you. Barry, Tommy Flanagan. I don't want to leave anybody out. But the point is that these guys got up on the bandstand. There was no chart. They just started. It was this nonverbal communication. Who was the best? When Specs let you go and cut you loose and said, it's time for you to start hitting it. I mean, did everybody have that kind of attitude? Meaning they just got up and because you guys all knew the American songbook, you knew the standards, and it was a matter of understanding knowing the melody. I mean,
this was your you had to have this history in your heart. When you sat down to play this instrument, whatever it was, you have to know the history of the music. And if you're doing jazz, then you have to know the history of jazz. So when somebody would call a specific song, you knew it. So only thing but Thelonious was different because his music was relatively unknown at that time. 57,
right.
Didn't nobody know too much about Monk's music. So his stuff was a little more challenging. But a couple of his songs were songs that we had heard other people play. But most of those guys that you just named, like Ethan and Stanley Cowell, all of the music that was played in jazz, and basically by their heroes and their mentors. So whenever they call a song or just start playing it, it's something that was not unusual for you to know the music, either bass player or a drummer.
We just thank you so much for hipping me to this. Let's play this for the audience right here. This is Blue Monk, Thelonious Monk, live from Peps in '57 with Tootie and Jimmy Bond. Let's take a listen to it.
It was the Blue Note. It was the Blue Note.
All right, just for the record, on the guy who uploaded it to YouTube, it says Thelonious Monk performing at Pep's Lounge in Philadelphia in '57 with Tootie and Jimmy. So that might need to
Jimmy Bond. No, it was actually at the Blue Note, so that's the only correction I have.
And the Blue Note in New York, not Philly.
No, the Blue Note was in Philadelphia as well. It was up on Ridge Avenue.
All right. Well, let's take a listen to it, and we'll come back.
Go ahead.
And now with Al Heath at the drums and Jimmy Bonds at the bass, we'll play Blue Monk.
Unfortunately, it fades out there, but I got to tell you, Al Heath, you heard it loud and clear on drums.
That's right.
Unbelievable.
He didn't even know my nickname. He didn't know nothing about that. But he knew I was related to Percy. He knew I was Percy's brother. But he knew my first name. I don't even know where he got that from.
When I talked to Louis Hayes, who, by the way, I don't think there are two people that make me laugh more than you and him, but he's absolutely hysterical. And,
He is.
He's freaking hysterical. And he said to me that, this is a little bit, there'd be times where a saxophone player would turn around and say, hey, play the drums like this. And he'd say, what the heck? And he'd say the most awful things to the guy. He'd say, what are you telling me to, I'm not telling you how to play your instrument. Why are you telling me how to play my instrument? Now, when he got with Oscar Peterson, Oscar was very, very, very much about wanting the arrangements to go a certain way. And, they had problems, but Louis wasn't going to turn down the bread. So I'm asking Jimmy Heath, was there a time in your early career when people there were cats that would turn around and say, hey, drummer, play it this way? And how would you respond to that? I mean, the point was that Louis was like, when he was with Horace Silver, when he was with Cannonball, those guys loved whatever he did. They never told him how to play ever. And my generation is so micromanaging and so insecure that they're always telling the accompanist what to play. And that's not jazz. I mean, did that happen to you? And how did you handle it?
with some insecure people. It never happened like with Sonny Rollins or Lester Young or any of those guys. Sonny Rollins never told me what to play, and he played everything. We played calypsos, we played swing, we played fast tempos, we played slow ballads. We did everything. He never suggested what I should play. Also, other people that I played with, like I mentioned Roland Hanna. I mentioned Tommy Flanagan. Tommy never said a word about anything that I played. And on his arrangements, he just, once I learned the arrangement, it was freedom. I could play whatever I wanted to play as long as I played the arrangement, and stopped when he stopped and started and did sped up or whatever it was. But
why were they?
I never had any problems with any people, any of those really well-known jazz musicians. Just the young guys that would try to dictate to you what you should play.
Do you remember, like, what you're talking about? Young meaning when you in nowadays, or even back in the 70s?
Well, I'll tell you. For instance, I hate to mention his name, but there's one guy who is outstanding in my mind, and I played with him years ago and recently. But he would always have a certain amount of drum stuff he wanted to hear. It was two of them. Frank Morgan was one, and this other person was. They're both alto players, Frank Morgan and then Charles McPherson.
Mm-hmm.
He had some special drum stuff he wanted to hear, and he would kind of dictate, what the drummer should do and how the drummer should play. So now I notice he has his son playing with him, and I know that must be a ridiculous job, man, to be playing with your father who's got a certain way he wants to hear the drums played. But it was, I never said anything, but I just did whatever I had to do because I knew that the particular gig was only for a week or a few days or something, and I would go on to the next person. So
right, and you didn't want to alienate somebody, because if that word got back, you wouldn't get other jobs.
And I understand. Some people, when they have arrangements and music, they want to hear a certain thing. I understand that, but you do that in rehearsals. I think that's when you get that together. And then if you can't do it on the job, then they need to get somebody else. But I think in rehearsals, that's the place to do all of that. Being critical about whatever was going on with the instruments that you're playing with.
Talking to Tootie Heath here, absolutely amazing human being, and we just treasure his rhythms, and I just have fallen in love with he's just been on so many iconic albums, and he was with all these original masters of the music when they were still in their prime.
Hey, Jake, let me tell you this about Thelonious.
Do it.
This is one thing I don't want to leave this out.
Yeah.
One time, this is later in my life, in my career, I had moved to New York, so I'm in a trio with Cedar Walton and Reggie Workman and myself, and we opening act at the club is gone now. It used to be called the Five Spot in New York, and it used to be way down on like 3rd Avenue somewhere. Then they moved up to St. Mark's Place recently, and it's gone now. It's a pizza parlor now. But anyhow, I played in there opposite. It was about 3 months opposite Thelonious and 3 months opposite Mingus and his group. And man, every night was a night, something that should have been filmed, because both of those guys were pretty outstanding musicians as well as personalities. Thelonious's personality was very unique. So one night, in the kitchen where this cook used to cook all the food, and his name was Mr. Chan. He was a typical Chinese guy with a long braid down his back of his neck. And Mr. Chan, he didn't talk much, but and that was our dressing room. So when Thelonious was off and we were on, Thelonious would sit in a chair in the kitchen, and vice versa. Before Thelonious came on, we would be in there because we opened for him. So anyhow, we would be on the bandstand playing. I don't know how many drinks, but he would have one on each finger or something, and he would walk in the kitchen and drink this before he would go on. So he came, walked by the bandstand, and went to the bar. So I happened to be in the middle of a drum solo at the time with Cedar, and so he told me, you know, I'm passing him again. When I go in the kitchen, he's in the chair, sitting in the chair. So he told me, he said, "Hey man, you know, you sound pretty good," and he called me MF. He said, "You sound pretty good, you MF."
Yeah, MF, yeah.
And, you know, yeah, you know, I mean, you know. You
Yeah, I did,
on
yeah.
Radio,
Yeah,
but you
no,
know,
it's cool.
you know,
No, I get it.
Yeah, so anyhow, he told me, you sound pretty good, you know, you MF. And then he said, you know, that's a term of endearment when you get it from Thelonious, you know. He didn't mean any harm by that word. But, you know, he just let me know. He's being familiar with me. So anyhow, he still didn't know my name, though. So anyhow, he said, "You sound pretty good." And he said, "But you know," I said, "No," and I was just a question. He said, "But you ain't no Max Roach." And that lifted me up and threw me down so hard, you know, because I'm taking this compliment from Thelonious, and then he throws me down and tell me who I'm not. I thought that was unusual. Another thing he asked me one day.
I just want to be clear because hold on, but just to finish that story, because the Skype dropped for a minute. He would go in the. Was he eating Chinese food, or he was just drinking, having Scotch whiskeys back there?
Oh, he would be drinking. He didn't eat nothing.
He never ate anything.
No, never. I never saw him eat anything, but drinking everything they had at the bar. He would have one glass of something on each thing. It looked like, and he would go in the kitchen and sit down and drink that. But anyhow.
Yeah. What's the other?
I never saw him eat anything.
What's the other? So yeah. So I mean, in some way. Yeah. No, hold on. But I mean, how much older was?
Break one night. So he came outside. I'm standing outside. You know. It's actually he had just finished playing and we was about to go on, so I'm standing outside because I always wanted to talk to him because I knew he was going to have something unique to say. So he asked me if I had he said, "You got $1,000 in your pocket?" And I said, $1,000, and I had never even seen $1,000. I didn't know what he was talking about. So I said no. So he pulled out a $1,000 bill and showed it to me. He told me, he said, "You got to have one of these because you might want to buy a house or a car or something."
Wow.
And that's all he said. And then he went and got on the bandstand after that. Or I did. And he was standing outside smoking cigarettes. He smoked nonstop.
He just drank and smoked. You never saw him. Were you hip to this? I mean, Big Black. Did you play with Black before, by the way?
Yeah.
Because Black had, I mean, he had his dear friends like Randy Weston, and he also had people that he butted heads with like Max Roach, and but he was very much like going back to the Baroness. You know, I mean, it was really her place in New York was kind of a. I don't know what the right word is, but I mean Ray Bryan or Barry Harris, T. Lone, these guys would go back and they'd crash out there, and you know, I mean, were you hip to? I'm not saying that you went there, but I mean, was that thing still going on?
No, yeah, it was still going on. Thelonious was at the house when I was there. Actually, Charlie Parker died in her apartment in New York.
He did?
She had an apartment in New York, and then she had the house in Jersey too, where Thelonious died.
Oh my God!
But I had never been to the house, and Barry is in the house right now today because she told Barry all he had to do was take care of her cats. You know.
That is epically class. Oh, so it was the house in Jersey he's in, right?
Yes, in Hackensack, New Jersey.
Holy cow!
And Barry is in the house right now, and he's there, been there for years. You know, since she died. But that was his pledge to her that he would take care of her cats. And guys make a joke. I don't know how true it is, but as soon as she died, Barry threw them cats out.
Oh, Jesus.
I don't know how true that is.
Man, dude.
That's what I heard.
Oh man. Yeah. I want to play this piece of music. I used to have this on CD well before I ever started my broadcasting career, and I had no clue that you you were on trap. So let's listen to this, and then we'll see if you can get it, and then we'll come back and break it down. Feinberg Show brought to you by Abbott Taylor Jewelers, Craig Pretzinger of Allstate Insurance, and Dr. Butch Diggs of Diggs Dental. We thank them for their support so we can play tunes like that for Tootie Heath. That's you on drums. You want to take a gander at what that is?
That's one. Usually I can tell who it is, but I could not tell you who that was.
I know, because I cannot wait to find out about this, because I'm serious. I had this on I had a European import CD of this back in the early 2000s. Ronnie Matthews doing the thing.
I was going to guess and say Ronnie Matthews.
Oh, come on, then guess it. Then guess it. I mean, you can't say that in the after.
You know what? I hadn't really heard Ronnie's style enough to tell the difference between him and Tommy Flanagan and people that I played with, Stanley Cowell. I can tell them guys right away. But Ronnie, I wasn't that familiar with Ronnie's music or his playing. But
you were familiar with. You were familiar, but you and Freddie were close. You and Freddie Hubbard.
Yeah, I knew Freddie pretty well. We were in the band together with the Benny Golson, Jazz Tet.
The Jazz Tet. I mean, what? Can you talk about?
Not the Jazz Tet. I'm sorry. Who was?
That was Art Farmer, right? Was that Art Farmer?
No, Art Farmer was with the Jazz Tet. I'm trying to think who was I put with Freddie. I played a lot with Freddie. I'm trying to think of what group it was.
I know
Can't think of it.
We've talked. This is just looking at your discography is just stunning. Even though you didn't recognize that track, can you just talk about what you were doing on the top of the kit as opposed to the bottom of the kit? I barely heard any bass drum. I know it was there, but it was so subtle. It was mostly, I don't know. Can you just talk about what you kind of rhythms you were playing on that track?
On the top of the drum kit, the older guys would play the bass drum real consistently, and like Buddy Rich and those guys, it was loud. You knew the bass drum was a part of it. But when guys like Joe Jones came around, old man Jonathan Jones, he would play the bass drum, but you wouldn't hear it. Wouldn't be dominating the whole sound of the kit. So we were basically, when I came along, like drummers like Specs Wright and guys who taught me, they played the bass drum, but it was not, it didn't dominate the sound of the kit like the older guys. When older music was played, Panama Francis and those guys, they used to really hit that bass drum pretty hard through everything. That was it established the rhythm of the whatever it was playing. But then Max Roach and Kenny Clark and those guys, when they came along, they left, even Art Blakey played it, but it was really subtle and quiet. They used to call it, you feather that. You didn't really pound that. But that was the older guys used to really play that bass drum.
Was there what would you say that just you yourself, knowing that you were learning from, guys that were more seasoned than you, was it something like you were just like, I'm tired of hearing that bass drum, I want to do something? What was your contribution to? No,
I was just following the tradition, of the times. It's just something that you just did not play that, loud. I was just following the tradition. I was not inventing anything or creating anything. I just followed the tradition of the sound, how the drums progressed from Buddy Rich and Gene Krupa and those guys in jazz. You really heard that drum. And even Sid Catlett before him. But when Kenny Clark and Max Roach came around, it was actually Kenny Clark was the one who was, we call it dropping bombs, when you would accent a particular part of whatever you were playing with your hands. You accented it with your foot. That we call that dropping bombs. So it was more important to do that than to play a consistent beat with your foot. you made it a part of whatever you were doing with your hands. It was answering, answer something down below. Nowadays, if you listen to the music that is in like hip hop, without the bass drum, you don't have anything, because that's the main part of the rhythm that is hypnotizing for people. It has a hypnotic effect when you hear that beat, and it's consistent, and it goes on through the whole piece, which has been removed. That was removed when I was playing.
I mean, okay, so bebop. I mean, your brother was really ensconced with that group of people, but just stepping back from it, I mean, Herbie, Freddie, you, there's just so many more cats. I mean, it's like Yusef was older, but Donald Byrd. Yeah, let's just work on those cats. Donald Byrd, Herbie, Freddie. Was there you say following a tradition, but clearly the music kept growing. I mean, you sort of came on the scene. Bebop was going out, cool jazz was coming in, and then I don't even know if words really do justice to it, but like as a mindset, as a group of young musicians, were you, if you were really following the tradition, you would have been playing four on the floor, but you were growing the music. And how do you guys feel like you grew the music, especially around that Fat Albert Rotunda time?
Oh, well, see, now that album was we were trying our best to get as close as, it was kind of R&B, rock and rollish.
Right.
A little mixture of both of those. So you was actually using the instrument quite different from a hardcore jazz group like Sonny Rollins or Donald Byrd or any of those people you name. It was quite different from that. That album Herbie was trying to cross over into the popular music at that time. So that was a difference in his arrangements and stuff that he played in his group before we did that album, which I played with Herbie for maybe a couple of years. And we were basically playing his arrangements. And then he was told by his management that he needed to upgrade his music, in other words, make it more popular. So we got closer to R&B than straight ahead jazz. We were moving in that direction. So
right, and I mean,
you had to be flexible. You had to be flexible as a drummer. You had to be able to do all of that.
How did you guys approach that? What kind of? I mean, that was Garnett Brown, and I think who was it?
Joe Henderson. Joe Henderson.
I mean, when it came down to the fact that you were playing, I think that was my question before about Dizzy Gillespie made a pass at Grace Slick with Jefferson Airplane. They were on the same bill, Dizzy and Jefferson Airplane. So it's like that. I mean, had you been already privy to? I mean, I know that we talked about this. Well, you did play R&B with Jimmy Garrison and those cats. But that was a different.
Not Jimmy Garrison.
Yeah.
Jimmy Garrison was basically straight ahead. He was not an R&B
was it Paul Chambers?
player.
No, but who showed up at school with you and he was playing he was playing the tuba for a while.
That was Jimmy Garrison.
Yeah, didn't you guys play a bunch of R&B?
They didn't have a bass.
Yeah, but I thought you guys played a lot of R&B and that kind of stuff early on. You played a club in Jersey.
We played with a little local Philadelphia group, which was we played in local bars around Philadelphia, and Jimmy Garrison was singing, and he decided when he heard my brother Percy play the bass, he said he decided he wanted to play the bass, and he learned real fast. So we were in a local group around Philadelphia called. There was a guy named Louis Judge, and I forgot the name of the group. I don't remember. I think we didn't have a name of a group. But Louis Judge, it was Louis Judge's group. He was a tenor saxophonist, and he was basically a R&B type guy, and that's where me and Jimmy Garrison had to play because he had a singer in the group as well. So that's where we got to play the R&B stuff. But that was my whole time with Jimmy Garrison until we moved to New York, and then we played a few times together. But Jimmy Garrison really, we went in different directions, you know, because he kind of went with people that he liked to play with, and I went with different people. So you know,
just, I mean, get me back. No, I wanted to.
With all kinds of groups.
Was it? So when Herbie wanted to go in this crossover, more pop direction, were you able to hearken back to those? The way
I'm trying to think of who the bass player was on those recordings. I think it was an electric bass.
Was it Buster?
Oh, it was Buster.
It was Buster.
It was Buster Williams. He hadn't gone to the electric bass yet. It was Buster Williams playing the bass. But you know what? One thing, Jake, what Herbie was doing was very difficult because we tried to play something close to rock and roll or R&B with the same instrumentation that we use with the jazz music.
Right.
You know, because basically R&B or rock and roll music, they use guitars more than trumpets and trombones. And, you know, Herbie still kept his jazz instrumentation, but we was crossing over. The music was crossing over, which was very difficult to do because I remember we played on a concert with the Iron Butterfly. And man,
yes.
you know, when they played, you know, it was so loud and
so loud.
It was crazy because they had all this amplification and guitars, and every instrument was like super loud. And then we came with our acoustic sound, and it didn't go over very well with the audience.
Were you amplified?
No drums were. Yeah, it was amplified a little bit, but there was just instruments and no guitars, you know.
No, it was still an acoustic group, really. I mean, it was an upright.
It was an acoustic group playing in a rock and roll setting, which it didn't go over very well.
I'm sorry.
It was time for the people to go and buy some popcorn while we were playing.
Not for me, man. I would have been hooting and hollering in the front row.
Those people had to get up out of there, man. Go get a beer or something until the main group came back with all that loud music.
I always love to stump Tootie with these. We're talking about a discography in the hundreds, if not, and I assume he's still receiving royalty payments from some of this stuff. I hope. I want to put this other tune in now. Let's see if you can peg it, and we'll come back.
All right.
Now, you've played with a lot of B3 players like Shirley Scott and people like that, but that's not Shirley. You want to take a guess at who that is?
I can't tell you who the organ player, but I know that was Ted Dunbar playing guitar, right?
Tootie, we're gonna need to get a fine tuning on the car here. No, it was not.
It was not Ted Dunbar.
Dude, Ted Dunbar was a numerologist and a stone genius and a badass, but that was not Ted Dunbar.
Well, the only other one I thought of, if it wasn't Shirley, what's his name? I can't remember.
Well, I actually wanted to ask you about this guy because I don't think I don't think his health is in great shape, and I really wanted you to talk about Philadelphia's own Pat Martino.
Oh, that was Pat playing guitar?
It was Pat.
Yeah, I wouldn't remember that, man, because I think that was the only time I'd ever played with Pat. But who's the organ player?
So and Pat was the leader of the date. Who you just take, because he's the B3 player is the leader. You want to take a guess? And your brother was on this album too.
I have no idea who was his name. It was a guy.
Don Patterson. Don Patterson.
I forgot his name.
Don Patterson.
Yeah, Don Patton. Yeah, I remember him.
No, not John. Yeah, Don Patterson. Yeah, Patterson.
Don Patterson, yeah.
Yeah, the album was called These Are Soulful Days. Again, what's so great is Tootie is never, ever focused on the past. And here I am playing these albums that have meant so much to me. That was Don Patterson, Jimmy Heath, Pat Martino, and Jimmy. And, I mean, Philadelphia has brought, whether it was Mickey Roker, Reggie Workman, John Coltrane, Donald Duck Bailey, how would you, have you been back to Philadelphia at all? What?
Oh, yeah. I went back there with Ethan and Ben Street, and we did an album called, with Ben, and it was a trio.
Right.
I forgot the title of the album. No, I don't remember the title.
What are you? Can you? I was curious about. I had a chance to see Tootie meet him in person in Santa Fe. He took me to this really good restaurant, a lot of cute waitresses and really good food. And are you planning on any percussion ensembles? You got any gigs coming up this summer?
I play with two other drummers here. I have a drum group called the Whole Drum Truth.
Yes.
And I use a young man named John Trinacosta and another young man by the name of Lon Bienvenu. And we play together quite a bit. And we've done a couple of concerts. Now we're going to do one in August.
What's the date on it?
I don't have a date.
It's gonna be in Santa Fe?
Yeah.
I am going to absolutely. I might come. Are you going to be around this summer at all too? Because I'd love to come back and see you.
A little bit, yeah. I'm leaving Monday for L.A. and I'll be back at the end of May.
Yeah, I'm thinking more like
20th or so of May.
I'm thinking more like sometime in June or
Yeah, June and July.
Yeah, the weather's nice.
August, I think that's when we're going to do this concert.
I need to know the date on that too because I want to make a trip for that. I also I wanted to ask you. I was down at Jazz Fest in New Orleans and I ran into a good buddy of mine. His name is Brian Haas. He's a really, really tremendous piano player on the same level as Iverson. And he lives in Santa Fe. And, he's been wanting to just come and hang with you for a while. He has a friend that was a student of yours. I can't remember her name. But I was wondering if it was okay if I could give him your number.
Sure. I'd be glad to talk to him.
Well, yeah, because he is, and he's a great cat, and he's a badass, and so are you. So, anyway, part 3 in the books, Tootie, and much love to you. I can't wait to.
On June the 14th, I'm going to play at the Museum Cafe.
What?
I'm sorry. I said June the 14th. Yeah.
June the 14th.
June the 14th.
I'm sorry,
Yep.
And is that
Museum Cafe is called?
And that's in Santa Fe.
That's in Santa Fe, yeah.
Who are you playing with?
I don't know either of the guys, none of the guys, because they haven't been chosen yet. But it's a trio, just piano and there probably be some local guys. I forgot the young bass player's name. But he's the first time I've ever played with these guys. So
Well, I'm going to be there. I'm coming. It's
okay.
and we're going to blow that out on new media and I cannot wait. 2 sets or 1 set, or it's going to be.
We usually play one set, and we usually start about 7:30 or so, and it's about a good hour.
Okay, well, I'm going to call you so you're getting back from LA at the end of May. I'll call you the first week or so of June just to find out, but I'll be there 100%, Tootie.
Okay, good. I hope to see you then, Jake.
Yeah, much say, do me a favor, send my love to M. Tume. How's he doing?
He's a miracle, man. This guy had some serious surgery, and he's doing really well.
So is he going to be able to come back to Santa Fe, or is he? Because I know he had to drive back to Jersey last time.
No, he said he don't want to come back again because he had a bad experience here.
No, I know, dude.
And,
Yeah, no, I dig it. Listen, I love that cat so much, man. He is a miracle.
Yeah.
He's you guys are. It's the greatest family in the world, man. And so yeah, I'm just expect a call. His name's Brian Haas. He's a great guy, and I'll see you real soon.
Okay, Jake.
All right, Tootie. Love you, man.
Okay, thanks for thinking about me.
Always,
Bye.
always. Peace. Well, just another whistle stop. Tootie Heath, part 3 in the books. We'll be back in a couple hours with 2 more spiritual musicians. That's it for now on the Jake Feinberg Show. We'll see you soon.